suitable for the role of Cabinet Secretary to which you have been nominated, and anything else that you think adds value to what we are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is William Kabogo, born in Komavai sub-county in Githunguri constituency. Went to primary school in Komavai, Kitito, Ruiru, did my CPE, and then joined Thika Technical High School. And in 1978, I left for India, and I did a bachelor's degree in commerce. Came back in 1983 and joined Controller and Auditor General as an audit assistant in Exchequer and Audit Office. A job that was a bit boring. Then I looked for a new job quickly, and I found a job in Mombasa as a business advisor for an NGO, where I rose from business advisor to executive director. Then come to 2002, it was the Uhuru time, the generation to join politics and lead Kenya. And at that point, I had become a businessman, an astute businessman, made a little bit of money. And I thought I would join the team, Mr. Speaker, to take the country to the next level. So I joined politics in 2002, August, was elected Member of Parliament for the larger Juja, which is today Juja, Ruiru, and Thika constituencies. Come the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker, I decided to vie for a gubernatorial seat for Kiambu County. And I was successful, and I became the governor, first governor of Kiambu. And why I think, Mr. Speaker, this is a good job for me as ICT and Digital Economy Minister is that I managed, while at Kiambu, to digitize the entire revenue collection in Kiambu County, taking our revenues from 800 million a year to 2.7 billion in 14 months. I also managed to digitize the health systems such that there would be seamless work by doctors in treating Kenyans in all our Kiambu hospitals. Also had developed management information systems for Kiambu County so that from a dashboard, Mr. Speaker, I would be able to know exactly what is happening in each of the ministries, the 10 ministries. So really, that gives me a head start on, because my view, Mr. Speaker, is that the job of a minister is that of a manager and a leader. And with a big background, I have learned management skills and I have practiced them. And so I am suitable for the job of Minister of ICT. And as Peter Drucker says, it's about doing things right and doing the right things, a combination of which will give you good start in management skills, Mr. Speaker. It's a long journey, Mr. Speaker, but I've tried to condense it. While coming in here, I read on Twitter, how is this guy going to manage an ICT ministry, yet he doesn't have a computer? Mr. Speaker, I started using computers in 1992. They were green, and used the MS-DOS language, you know, you know, you'd do CD, change directory, move the etc., and write programs. So I'm well conversant with the technical aspect of ICT, but information technology, communication technology, and the gist of putting it together, that's what a minister requires to know.
Great. We'll ask members to ask you questions. Members, let's try and cover in the allocated time. I'll start with the Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Kabogo, my question relates to the immediate challenges facing the world of technology, both here in Kenya and overseas, that I'll be more concerned about here in Kenya. You know that recently we've had cyber attacks targeted on critical government websites and government services. So my question will be, I'd like to hear if approved, how will your ministry ensure that we have resilience and rapid recovery of these government services when we do have those attacks? I also would like to hear what strategies you have to deal with the growing challenges posed by social media phenomena such as fake news, misinformation, disinformation. What strategies would you promote to ensure that we still uphold freedom of speech, but also protect the country from fake news and misinformation? And lastly, also your ideas on how to deal with the big challenge of concern by use of unethical use of artificial intelligence to terrorize people or to promote misinformation again and disinformation. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. On the issue of challenges on cyber attacks, this is a world phenomenon today. But other countries in the world have engaged professionally so that some of these things can be curbed through legislation. And it's a continuous process because the attacks are getting more and more serious because of AI. Because both AI is good and it's bad in terms of how we use AI. But the challenges are real, and the only thing is to be able to put resourceful people and money in terms of developing firewalls and things like that that will stop cyber attacks. And in real time. And this would be difficult given the status of our country in terms of use of where we talk of things that have already happened. And that is why it's important to have digital information available in real time so that decisions can be made in real time. And that is possible. Social media, misinformation, and things like that. Apparently, this is happening again in the whole world, where very energetic young men and women on social media take to social media to send information, some fake, some real, some by use of AI. They could easily get my picture as Kabogo and use it to spread fake news as it is me who is saying. Suffice to say, Mheshimiwa, that the laws are there. We have, for example, the computer misuse and that law that governs such misuse is just a part of enforcement that needs to be improved, and also regular review of the law, but also cognizant of the fact that there is freedom of expression in Kenya. And we have to strike a balance so that the freedom of one is not used to infringe on the freedom of others. But more so, we should be thinking about engaging the younger generations, the Gen Zs, the millennials, on how to have ethical use of cyber space or internet space. Because today there will be Gen Zs, but in a couple of years there will be fathers. And the engagement should be such that if you put Kabogo in a coffin, as is the case now, at one time there will be fathers like me. How would they feel when their father is put in a coffin? Genuine engagement with the parties that are sharing this platform. On the challenges of the use of AI, I said AI before is good because it helps. If you want to know something today about anything, AI can help you, because AI, what it does is try to mimic human behavior and human thinking. And it's quick, it's information on your fingertips, but badly used will be detrimental to any nation. We should be able to have laws that help in our behavior and our attitude in terms of engaging and using AI. And from time to time, if I'm confirmed in this ministry, we should be able to engage the legislature to see that we have laws that help so that there is a balance. Again, I am aware of the very, very vibrant constitution that we enjoy today that has freedoms that I would not be the one to get into the toes of breaking other people's freedoms, but cognizant of the fact that there should be a balance. And I think I've answered your 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And maybe just for the record, the nominee is my former governor in Kiambu. And we served at the same time when he was governor, and I was a first-time member of parliament. CS nominee, you have indicated that you are the party leader of Tujibebe in your documents. Tujibebe or Kenya leader as a party leader. I want to know whether you have resigned or you intend to resign. If approved, whether you would resign. 2, in relation to the question that the Deputy Speaker has asked on AI. This is a question from a Kenyan living in Finland who tells me he recently, and he also comes from Kiambu, he recently read an article in one of the newspapers in Helsinki on the working conditions that are described as equivalent to modern slave labor, where American big tech companies are using young Kenyans, especially to do what is described as harmful, removing what is described as harmful content or crude content on Facebook, on TikTok, Instagram, on largely main social media platforms. I say that they ensure that they review Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram to ensure that these important platforms are not filled with hate speech or incitement to violence. We watch murders, executions, child sexual abuse, and rape, often for more than 8 hours a day. And we are paid less than $2 an hour for it. The workers described it as part of the excerpt from that article. And therefore, we would want to hear what you would intend to do as Cabinet Secretary now in charge of ICT. 1, to protect these young Kenyans from being exploited by the big tech companies working on AI from the US and other developed countries. And 2, to also protect these young Kenyans from the harmful effects of the content that they watch, that they have to go through as they work. And you know, mental health is indeed a big issue and has been rated as one of the big issues, especially with those working in the tech space in the country. And probably part of it is out of this engagement with content that they are finding online as they work. What would you do to protect them? Lastly, on revenue assurance, calls dropping, Kenyans telcos continue to work with, we all work with phone companies or telcos that call drops are very frequent, and nobody ever compensates Kenyans for the call drops. What you would intend to do, plus, because that is a situation where these telcos are stealing from Kenyans as we make calls. But the same telcos also steal from government in terms of revenue, because we have a system where KRA cannot tell how much airtime you have used, because it's a self-reporting system with the telcos. What revenue assurance systems would you put in place, probably from CA, Communications Authority, view of the amount of data, the amount of airtime that Safaricom and all the other telcos are selling to Kenyans, because there is theft both ways, from Kenyans and also from the revenue authorities.
Nominee, you can record the next questions. Junet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, through you, I would like to ask the nominee, Honorable William Kabogo Gitau, that we are looking here at the suitability, his suitability to be the Cabinet Secretary for ICT. In that regard, having been a governor, member of parliament, and having run a huge county like Kiambu, I have no doubt in his capacity. But these are the questions I want to ask. In 2010, Honorable Chairman, the late Professor George Saitoti, then the Minister for Internal Security, named in Parliament persons suspected to be drug traffickers in connection with alleged illegal trade, drug trade, and who are under investigation. Among the persons that were named, Honorable Speaker, the name of Honorable Kabogo appeared on the list. Can you make it clear to this committee and the great people of this country who are watching you today, did you or have you ever been suspected or charged with the drug trafficking? Second question is, this is a simple one, during your tenure as a governor of Homa Bay, of Kiambu. No, Kichwangi, do you Homa Bay? Yeah, it's Kiambu. You have snapped, they say many times, summons from the Senate. Now, as a cabinet secretary, you will be answerable to Parliament. These are, other than the appointing authority, these are your next employers, second employers. You will appear here every day to answer questions on ICT and those kind of things. Will you be able to appear before the Senate and the National Assembly at any time that are required? And lastly, people also describe you as somebody who is they say tough-headed, bordering arrogancy, highest level of high-handedness. How are you going to be compatible now with being a CS with this kind of job that requires a lot of humility? And looking at your CV, lastly, I went through, you have not indicated how many children you have. Can you share with the committee how many children you have, Honorable Kabogo?
Go on. In Africa, we don't count children, so you can ignore that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I appreciate the fact that Honorable Junet has said he has no doubt I have the capabilities of becoming Minister for ICT. I thank you. Party leader, Mheshimiwa Ichung'wa, is talking about working conditions and big tech companies. Like I said before, Mr. Speaker, it is the use of regulatory frameworks and legislative work that can help us deal with these big tech issues. And the way they take advantage of especially African countries in terms of call drops. I have been a victim of very many call drops by Safaricom itself. And the minute you call them and ask why is this happening, they say it is technology, it is these days, frequencies, all these stories. As Minister for ICT, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, this will become a thing of the past. We should be able to ask CA to be able to get call logs and determine how much call drops each caller has and what the company needs to do to compensate drop times. On the issue of hate speech and harmful content, again, this is a matter of every country having its own regulations. It is true if you look at TikTok, you look at Facebook and X, you will find all sorts of pornography, actually even available to children. This is a situation where our regulators should be able to engage these providers or the owners of these apps, Facebook, TikTok and others, to know how they can be regulated.
Nominee, it is not about the regulator. If you are approved, you'll be the minister providing policy direction.
Exactly,
That's
Mr.
what
Speaker.
Ichung'wa wants
So
to
my
know.
first directive to CA is to be able to get to know how this can be regulated. And we have technical people who have experience, Mr. Speaker, on how these things can be done. I should be able to sit with them on the first or second day of my term in office to make sure that there is a direct and clear way of dealing with these problems. So, Mr. Speaker, On the issue of exploitation, I have addressed that. Perfect and harmful content, again, it is a matter of great concern how much bad content is available on these platforms, and it is worldwide. We have seen situations where other countries have stopped certain platforms in operating, like, for example, the discussion now in the US, where TikTok is supposed to be banned from using the American airspace. I should be able to get to the bottom of these things and see that the Kenyan content is good for consumption for underage and also other users. If I go to, I'm not sure whether I got the third question from...
he asked if you are still chairman of Tujibebe party.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am not a chairman of Jibebe now. The minute I was nominated by the president, I resigned the following day, and I think a copy of that is in the bundle of documents that I have given. From the Honorable Junet, a question I have dealt with all my life since that fateful day when Professor Saitoti, the late, dropped names of MPs as suspected drug dealers. I want to say here on record, Mr. Speaker, I have never, ever dealt with drugs of any kind all my life. Mr. Speaker, this
not even Panadol?
Mr. Speaker, I do not imagine that Junet Mohammed was asking about Panadol. I have some in my pocket if it's just Panadol. But I know he's talking about hard.
We know what he meant.
He's talking about hard drugs, cocaine, and the rest. And this is a very disturbing subject, Mr. Speaker. But I invite Kenyans also to have a look at the dossier that Mr. Saitoti brought to the House. It's a dossier such that, Mr. Speaker, if it was given to Inspector Mwala, it would not pass Mr. Mwala's table for a script. If, Mr. Speaker, at that point in time, and records speak here in this House, I fought vigorously the tabling of our names without a leave of the House, because the rules are such that if you are discussing the conduct of an MP, you need to move a substantive motion. But for that particular one, it went through smoothly as planned. But my point here, Mr. Speaker, the government or agencies, the police, did a thorough investigation, and they gave a temporary report a month later, which was tabled and is part of the records of this House. And they found that I was not culpable. I had never been involved in drug trafficking, and I had never been a driver of the Honorable Mao, as that dossier had said. I actually said, Mr. Speaker, on the floor of this House, that there is no need of anyone trying to do extradition proceedings to get me to travel to the US to answer these charges. I offered myself. They give me a one-way visa, and I'll take myself to any part of the world to answer charges of drugs. It's never happened. So the authors of that dossier probably didn't get exactly what they wanted, but what they got is messing with people's names. And that is the situation it is today. Mr. Speaker, it has continued to happen. People talking about, you will find some of us are named Pablo, all those names. But the truth be told is that I did take some people to court. If you remember, there was a program by Standard called something Mihadarati by Mheshimiwa from Nyali. And I did take them to court. It's taken long, about 8 or 9 years. But finally, I got judgment against them, and I was paid a little bit of money. But circulation is still happening. This is something I am bound to live with for the rest of my life. But I do not do drugs. Thank you. That was a tough one. Yeah?
You've not answered one. He also asked you that when you are governor of Kiambu, you snubbed invitations and summons to attend.
I'm going there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it was...
the perception of being high-handed.
It is... pardon?
Go on and answer the questions.
Yes. In the beginning, when governors were being called to Senate, there was a general feeling that we should not come to Senate as an independent government. But when it was clear through court decisions that governors would appear, we started appearing, and I want to be on record here, Mr. Speaker. I came to this Senate House to answer questions of senators. For 3 consecutive years, Kiambu had appeared. As a matter of fact, I came to the clerk of that committee, and I said they can ask the chair, I think it was Professor Nyang then, that should any county be invited to the Senate and they do not appear, Kiambu can appear. It's just next door in short notice, even half an hour. And that's how we managed to go through our audit queries for Kiambu for 3 years. So I should be able to appear before the House of Parliament, both Senate and the National Assembly, to answer any questions that may arise, and also carry along the staff of the ministry. Sometimes you ask questions. I've been to this house. Sometimes you ask questions and the minister is given questions by technocrats to bring to the house and they're never accepted. I should be able to come with the PS or whoever it is and tell them, now you need to answer this question because it's being asked by MPs who represent the people. It's the people asking. So I will honor invitations to appear. What was the other part?
Are you arrogant,
yes,
tough-headed, and high-handed?
Mr. Speaker, I have a very serious face, just like yourself. And that may sometimes be confused to me, but I'm very straightforward, and I do not beat about the bush. I say things as they are, and this is where people wonder whether doing things right or doing the right things is the thing to do. I believe in doing things right, but doing them right. So that sometimes it appears. I have a very strong personality on putting things in order. And that is why I was able to bring order to Kiambu, a very difficult county. How
come they rejected you after 1 term?
Mr. Speaker, that is a long discussion you and I would have because you know how elections are done in this country.
Yes, Jeanette?
Mr. Speaker, the nominee has answered by saying he is not high-handed, he is not arrogant because he has a very serious face. So does he use his face and his bald head to scare people?
Speaker, maybe because there's also a question CS nominee did not answer. But probably just in defense of him, Honorable Speaker, on that, or without being seen to defend him, from a question by my colleague Jeanette, is probably a character trait of people from Kiambu of being straightforward, saying it as it is, and we are at times misconstrued to be arrogant, but that's just the way we are, Honorable Speaker, those of us who come from Kiambu.
So is that what you said, Leader, the burial of the mother of the Speaker?
Honorable Speaker, CS, my question on the big tech companies is how they're exploiting, and in fact, that article spoke of the work that is usually done by students, housewives, and groups of people who are in a weak position. So what I wanted to hear from you is what policy proposals would you be having to ensure, one, that the big tech companies first conform to our labor laws. 2, they are not exploiting these people because they're in a weak position. Because what they are doing is taking advantage of our students because they can be paid $2. $2 translates to about 300 shillings an hour. But in the US, nobody will be paid $2 for whatever mundane task you are given. So I'd want to hear what policy proposals you bring into the ministry to ensure that we enforce our labor laws with the big tech companies, as much as we're in a third world and developing country, but also big tech companies are not taking advantage of our resource, because these young people who are tech savvy are a resource to this country and to the world, and therefore they ought to be compensated properly. That's the bit CS, I think you didn't get the question.
He's a CS nominee. He's
CS
not a
nominee.
CS yet.
Yes, it's a good prayer, Mr. Speaker. You will realize, Mheshimiwa Ishongwa, that it's not only affecting Kenyans on outside jobs. Even the local content creators, like in music, that put their stuff on YouTube, they rarely get value for their content. So I should be able to bring into Parliament a bill that should be able to regulate how much money content creators are paid, just like the coffee industry. There are brokers in this business of digital economy who take advantage. You'll be surprised that probably a job like that is paid for $200 and only $20 or $10 that get to this. So we should be able to do that through some regulation and some law. And knowing how vibrant our young people are, they would be happy, especially the Gen Zs. We can redirect their energy into using that energy productively to make money in the digital economy. So I should be at the forefront in terms of bringing laws or amendments to our laws so that our labor laws are applicable. But again, challenges of enforcement is something we would need to worry about how to enforce, because the employing agency is an American agency, is a British agency. How do we apply it online here? So, and those are things that the technical people in the ministry should be able to advise.
Pausing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, our Speaker. Honorable Kabogo, people listening to you and watching you, particularly from rural areas, are worried. They have given me their messages. And they're saying, how much does Honorable Kabogo know this country? How much does he travel out of Kiambu, out of Nairobi? How much? Like, for example, do you know anywhere, like in Pokot, any location in Pokot? As an example, Honorable Kabogo. Why? Because of the Minister for ICT now is actually about the rural areas in terms of communication, you know, in terms of telephone communication and so on and so forth, which actually lacks in this country, Honorable Kabogo, and particularly pastoral areas, conflict areas, where if we had this communication, maybe it would have helped us to reduce this conflict. And therefore, they're asking me to ask you and tell them, how much have you traveled out of Kiambu? Number two, what are you going to do should Parliament approve you and the President appoints you? What are you going to do with the Universal Service Fund? You know that sits in CAK. And that fund is supposed now to do what I'm telling you, making our country reachable in terms of telecommunication. But it's not being used to the best of... There are many Kenyans who cannot call Nairobi now. So, Honorable Kabogo, how much have you traveled out of Kiambu?
Hold, Coach. Just not Honorable Kabogo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Kabogo, our cyberspace has become extremely robust. And I have a totally different view. Many people will probably vilify the young people out there who have different arguments and are doing all sorts of things in that space. But in this very same seat that you are, 4 months ago, I asked the then nominee, who is now out, what she will do, particularly with the space of the many young people, enterprising young people, whose source of employment will have otherwise been in that space. I give you an example. Mulot, for instance, is a small town, but extremely robust in terms of business. That is particularly coming from the cyberspace. So many young people, but many of it borders on criminality. And I posed a question at that time to the CS nominee that what will she do differently to make sure that you can harness the young people there and have a resource in them. She promised that she was actually going to look into it. She was going to probably even build an institute and tap on the knowledge of these young people and onboard them into genuine business and transactions online. Of course, she didn't do it. I really want to peg my hope, assuming that you are approved, and I really want to hear your thoughts. What are your plans to these many young people out there? You look at the communication there on the internet, and you can see frustration. And many people are educated. Can we tap this otherwise unuseful communication on the internet and make a resource out of it, make those people earn their income from that space, and in a way, we will get rid of the negative communication that we have in the cyberspace. What are your thoughts, Honorable Kabogo?
Naisula, take the next, Honorable Kabogo.
Thank you, Chairman. And one of my questions was raised by Honorable Kosing on the issue of ensuring that every part of the country, Kenyans can access telecommunication services as a basic right or need. My question is on the issue of data protection. There's been a conversation in the country about how people are accessing individuals' data. When you talk about people who are to be arrested or to be found and their data is accessible, you know, through the telecommunication providers, it cuts the same way. Members of Parliament here also, their data is plastered all over, and they get kusalimiwa. I would like to get your views on data protection of individuals in the country for everybody, because it's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways for everybody, and how you're going to ensure that individual data is actually protected. And then the last question is that many Kenyans have suffered financial losses from SIM swap fraud and other electronic money-related scams. If approved, what strategies will the ministry adopt to address, mitigate, and prevent SIM swap fraud and ensure online safety for all consumers?
Yes, can you answer those?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can't remember the name.
Honorable Posing.
Posing, yes.
I thought all members introduced themselves.
Kabogo, Mr. Speaker, Kabogo is very widely traveled in Kenya. I know every corner of Kenya. I remember holding a harambe in his constituency with one of the ex-former ministers. So I have traveled. At some point when I was younger, Mr. Speaker, I would fly all over the country, so I am conversant with Kenya. And be assured that if I'm confirmed, this digital divide will be a thing of the past. As you have said, USF funds are there available, probably to a tune of 115 million if my research, 115 billion if my research is correct. And we should be able, if you look at the master plan of the ICT department, is to connect Kenya. And I want to be the minister, Mr. Speaker, if confirmed, who connected Kenya 100%. Mr. Speaker, you realize that from TIMS, Kenya government owns 20% of the internet in that cable. And you will find only 2% of that is tapped and utilized by Kenyans and more so government departments. So I should be the one who will make sure that that 20% is spread in the whole republic. And for cases where security is a threat, we have satellite services like what Starlink is doing now. So government should be able to have a discussion with satellite internet providers so that the entire republic is connected. I'm cognizant of the fact that there's a plan to put 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable to connect the country, but also cognizant of the fact that most of those cables are not lit. So if I'm confirmed and going to the minutes, I should be able to make sure that the cables that have been put so far are lit, and Kenyans can enjoy internet services in the entire republic. Cyberspace from Honorable Koech, and what we will do to make sure that we harness the energy of the young men. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I want to be that minister that engaged the Gen Zs and made sure that their energy was converted, and they will be so engaged such that they will be able to make money, business in the digital platform. And Mr. Speaker, when I was in Kiambu, I did see the plight of the young and how poor the young men and women were. And they had gone to school. We had pushed them through school, and we told them, you study and you will get a job. But there were no jobs after university. And I really got surprised at some point where graduates and doctors were very happy about kazi mtaani. And that's a very sad story for a graduate to go to kazi mtaani. So I started a biashara fund where we set aside 300 million shillings for small loans to young boys and girls, and mostly women, disadvantaged communities in society. And we entered into a contract with the bank so that the bank will do the core business of lending, but use our money at an agreed interest rate. So I want to be the one that will persuade government that we can put resources aside and do these startup hubs where young men and women will be able to employ themselves. This is besides, Mr. Speaker, the 1,450 ward hubs that the president has initiated. I have a feeling that every one of those ward hubs would bring forth about 10, so that the young men and women can get access to affordable loans. You realize that today the non-collateralized loans in Kenya are charging interest of up to 20–25%. And really there is no business a young man would do and be able to pay interest of 20%. So if we can get non-collateralized loans by government, or a collaboration between government and, for example, KCB, loans will be given to these young men, and it's startup loans. And what we did in Kiambu, we gave loans through LPO loaning, so that you don't give them cash. So that if it's computers, they would get computers, and they would get routers and all these things that you need in a digital hub. And then they would use the digital hubs for a period of 2 years, for example, during which they should be able to get money and support themselves. So that's one of the things that we could initiate. Data protection, I think, from the Honorable Lesuda. You know, I understand the concern of data being harvested. And if you listen on social media, you will see people attacking that Safaricom has released people's numbers, and then they are being given to Kenya Revenue Authority. I say from the front that if that happens, it is illegal, because we have laws that protect data. I am told, and I want to reliably believe, that only a security threat would cause sharing of data. But I would want to be the one that makes sure that private and personal data is protected by government if I were to be nominated. It is a serious threat to persons, it is a serious threat to families, and I would want to make sure that, again, dialogue between parties, discussions online and offline and in places like Parliament, opening public portals to discuss data security, data protection, etc. would help, so that we create a modus operandi sort of on what we say and what we, because some of these things may just be not true, I do not want to say it's not true, but it may be so.
I think, Honorable Kabogo, I think it's better to correct you on the issues like, it's not really the phone companies that have, like Safaricom, that are guilty of giving out people's data. It's usually those companies that ask for your details to get bonga points or so many points when you go shopping. Those are the ones who have your data, and that's where the fault has actually been, not the official service providers.
Correct, I'm corrected, but that too happens.
Yeah.
But I also want to say that when you go to Carrefour and buy something online and it's delivered to you, the next thing you see is a message from Carrefour asking you whether you will be buying the same things again, meaning that the number you used to pay, your M-Pesa number, has been harvested from the mall and it is being used. So we should be able to regulate that by legislation, and I'm sure it is doable. Again, remember the extent of use of the social media platforms. We have the most expert young men in hacking. So hacking is also an issue where people just hack into places like Carrefour and be able to see who is shopping what and how much capacity they have. So it's an entire complex industry, but Kenyans are innovative and we have the capacity to deal with those problems.
Thank you. Mary Emase.
Thank you, Chairman. My question to the nominee. This country's been battling with a lot of gender-based violence, femicide, and many others. And I want to take you to 2011. In 2011, a young university woman with a beautiful and promising life, Miss Mercy Keino, was found dead in unclear circumstances, just like many of them that we lose through femicide. And that was after being invited to a party where it is alleged you were the host. That tragic incident left so many Kenyans, so many questions in Kenyans' minds, and still remains in the memory of many Kenyans. Kindly expound on this and explain whether you are fit to hold office in light of these allegations. Thank you.
Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kabogo, you've been a governor. But I think you know the docket you're going into is the ICT and communication. And the Kenya Kwanza government needs more communication out there than anything else. I believe you know about holography. If you do, please, you will tell us how you would want to deploy it, even if the president cannot make it into one area to communicate, or a minister. They do not have to go in 2-3 places. It can be done through holography. Would you explore that idea? Today, I don't know if you're aware of the Kenya National Artificial Intelligence Strategy Paper 2025-2030 has been released. A draft has been released. I don't know if you're aware of that. If you're not, what you will find, would you then want to change what has already been circulated as a draft, or how will you enrich it? You have said you will get bored very easily. That's why you left the job you were doing. I hope the job you're now looking for, the right now, which we are vetting you for, you won't get bored so fastly. The last one is regarding KBC and Communications Authority and Helios. Helios, the one which was buying telecom. Helio, I am corrected. If I don't know how you have communicated with CAK, there is a debt which CAK has got of KBC, which has not paid about 6 billion shillings. How are you going to tackle that? And how are you going to tackle the retirees of KBC who are not getting their pensions and the lump sums from the year 2021? Thank you, Chair.
Ferdinand.
Chairman.
Mary, switch on off your mic.
I think traveling around and interacting with the people from this region, the East African countries actually are looking at Kenya as a more developed, because I've been to Tanzania, Uganda, and even Southern Sudan. And I've realized that the whole Kenya to be more developed in terms of the ICT facilitation. And I just want to see, because they can, instead of people traveling, what have you, how are you going to improve, how are you going to coordinate this infrastructure with the other countries? If we met you, the Minister for Communication. Secondly, I think what we are seeing around is a lot of indiscipline among our youths. And you are trying to explain, but the youths needs a program, a specific program to be able to discipline them going forward. If we leave them the way they are, this country is going to be thrown to the dogs. So what programs will you come with? Being, of course, you are saying you know this discipline. What are you going to come up with this program to be able to discipline our children so that going forward, there's discipline in the area, particularly in your country? Thank you.
Last on this batch, Morugara.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nominee, just put a star against KBC, because we are not very good at keeping our national heritage. I mean, the successor in title, KBC, took over from VOK. And VOK was quite developed those days when we used to have it as our main station. Today it's a Pearl Shandle. And we are worried that other entities in other